Mr. PTR, thank you very much for joining us here on the News 18 Town Hall. This is election season. We're in election mode. The Election Commission is likely to announce the dates, I believe, in the next few days. The CM was here earlier today and he has framed this election contest as a Dravidian model versus North Indian model or Aryan model of election. I just want to look at, this model of development, which is, yes, high industrial growth. The overall growth of the state is 11.19% is what has been said by the Chief Minister, and the Industries Minister also said that. But at the same time, it's also a high welfare model, whether it is the 1,000 rupees for women, the free bus travel, so on and so forth. How much is this sustainable, this high growth, high welfare model of development, which you have framed as a Dravidian model?
First, thank you for having me. Let me also pay my respects to senior political leader Thiru Shankar. I want to just make one point about what he said about his forefathers and mine.
Sure.
It is true that the Reservation Act of 1921, which restricted the number of former elites that could get into certain positions, probably drove his forefathers to Lahore. But what I want to say is that because of the brilliance of his father and the generations of privilege that they had, his father established a roaring practice in Lahore as one of the leading chartered accountants. And then after partition came back and was a very senior member of the profession in Delhi and retired. In his time was the president of the Chartered Accountants Association, ICAI. And now there is a memorial lecture in his memory instituted in the ICAI, and Thiru Shankar asked me to deliver that memorial lecture 2-3 years ago. So if you look at the overall outcome for the state, we have been much better off because of reservations, because people who otherwise would not have got that temporarily without the same merit as his forefathers got in, but then provided the pathway and coattails for many others to come. And his forefathers went on to have brilliant careers anyway, in Lahore, in Delhi, at the national level. And we respect that, and I go and pay my respects when I give the lecture. So that's what the reservation system did for us. Some had to do a longer route, and some found new routes that didn't exist. Now going back to your question, if you don't mind, let's just take like 3 minutes to go back to the basics, right? What is the job of a state? In economic terms, the job of a government is basically, in my view, 3 things. First and foremost, to improve the quality of life of its citizens, ideally through the delivery of better public goods and services, better investment, better environment, meaning investment in roads, bridges, water, hospitals, schools. So improve the quality of life of its citizens first. Second, provide an environment in which entrepreneurs, innovators, businessmen can thrive, trade, manufacturing, whatever, so that the growth benefits far exceed what you're giving the basics. You're giving water and housing and food and then aspirationally that they want to be doctors or lawyers or businessmen or global travelers. That's what private enterprise does. And there's a third vital component of the state's responsibility, which is that you must try to keep the gap between the extremes as low as possible. You don't want too many poor people, you don't want too many rich people, you want to keep the society cohesive so that there's not unrest. And a corollary to that is that you must have some scheme to protect the weakest of the weak in all societies. Call it unemployment, call it health insurance, call it whatever. And it's not always the same people, right? Life is fluctuating. Sometimes you'll be up, sometimes you'll be down. So if these are the 3 primary kind of responsibilities of the state, if you look around the world, there are many different models of government. One of the easiest ways to look at it is what percentage of the economy is government. Now in places like Sweden or Western Europe, that's like 30-35% because the state provides everything. Health, education, paternity leave, everything is free, right? And if you look at more capitalist countries, it's normally closer to 20%. So first question is, what kind of state are you? What percentage? Is it paternalistic? Is it social welfare as a priority or not? The second question is, how do you fund this? Some states have resources coming out of the ground, like oil or coal or gold. Some states have, entrepot, like Singapore, because of the trade and the investment. So how do you finance this and where are your revenues come from? And the third question is, if you have to take debt, how are you going to finance the interest and the debt? What is your capacity? These are the broad questions. In that scheme, if you look, all over the world, there is a high correlation between those states where there is a good safety net, a good social focus, broad participation in education and health and nutrition of the citizens, and high growth. That's true. Question is, which leads to which? Is it that because you do the social stuff well, you get good growth? Or is it because you get good growth, you get good revenues, therefore you can do the social stuff well? In our view, we have always focused on the social stuff first. That's what the Dravidian model is going back 100 years. We say, make sure everybody gets into the net, make sure everybody gets nutrition, everybody gets education, the rest of it will come. And that is increasingly true in a global economy because we have a large source of human capital. If they are productive, then the work will come find us. That is what has happened in the last 3-4 years, right? Our electronics exports have gone up 700%. That's foreign capital, that's foreign opportunities, not homegrown. We're not selling all those iPhones in Tamil Nadu, we're selling it in America and Europe and other places. So this model is almost a predicate, I would say. It's very hard for me to say, should I have high welfare or high growth? I'm saying, if you have a good society, you will have high growth, and a good society is at least partially defined by adequate welfare, if not high welfare. Now, there's, trade-offs that you can have about what is the notion of freebies and all that, but that I'll wait for you to ask me. Yeah.
No, so the overall, 35,000 feet view is also, and the finance minister in the recent tabling of the budget announced that the debt level, the overall debt level of the state is over 10 lakh crores. Now, the political opposition in the state has said that when they demitted office 5 years ago, it was 5.5 lakh crores. So it has doubled in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think, as I've said many, many times, you have to look at debt and then you have to look at interest. The way you look at debt is percentage of GSDP or GDP if you're a country, right? Because, as you know, the physical stock of debt will always keep increasing. Everywhere in the world. There was one exception when I was in the US when Bill Clinton actually started paying down US debt. But with that rare exception in the last 50 years, all countries, all states, the total stock of debt keeps increasing. Why does it keep increasing? Because the macroeconomic equation is that as wealth is created and as individual savings go up, the only balancing factor in macroeconomics is the borrowings of governments and companies. So the total stock, as the total wealth of the world increases, the total stock of debt and corporate and government debt will increase. Question is, how fast is it increasing and what is it costing you? So again, if the measure is debt to GDP, actually we are no worse off than the debt to GDP that was handed to us when we took office in 2021. And the real decay in the debt to GDP ratio came between 2014 and 2021. Those were the 7 really bad years for us. I'll give you some statistics in a minute. The second question is, what is the implication for interest payment? As the debt goes up, the interest payment goes up. The way the interest payment goes up is actually more problematic for you. Because the debt, as I say, it is never going to get repaid, right? It is an increasing stock. So the ratio bothers you. You don't want it to be too leveraged because you have secondary, tertiary problems. But the interest bothers you a lot more because your revenues, you have to pay interest first before you do anything else, including salary. Now I'll tell you the good news, the bad news. The great news for Tamil Nadu, ever since the signing of the FRA Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2003, all the way to 2014, Tamil Nadu's financial metrics improved dramatically. The debt to GDP, GSDP, which was 28 or 27%, dropped to 16. The interest to revenue, which is a greater concern to me, how much of my revenue am I forced to pay in interest payments, therefore I don't have it to do public distribution or school education. The interest revenue dropped from 22% down to 11%. That was a staggering period of improvement across both parties. 2-3 years, Madam Jayalalitha, 5 years, Thalaivar Kalaignar, then 2-3 years her. The minute she went to jail for the first time in 2014, Tamil Nadu's fortunes reversed. From 2014 till we took office in 21, the interest as a percentage of revenue rose again all the way from 11% to almost 20% because of ever increasing revenue deficits. The debt to GDP rose again from 16% all the way to about 24%, and then the COVID year it went up to 27%. We have not made it worse than that. That is, in the 5 years that we have been there, in some years we were better, I have the stats, in some years we were worse, but we have not made it much worse than what we inherited in either of these two primary metrics, debt to GDP or interest to revenue. Now the question is, what have we achieved while not reducing that? And that's the trade-off I made earlier. I said, if you tell me that the cost of improving that, let's compare it to Gujarat, for example, because Gujarat have much better fiscal metrics than us. If you tell me that the cost of improving my fiscal metrics is that I must have the social outcomes of Gujarat, much lower graduation rates from school, much less access to health, much greater multidimensional poverty, then I say, it's okay, I'll take the debt. Because for me, the job of government, number one, is to improve the lives of citizens. If I have to do that with debt, within the limits, I'll do that.
But your interest payments have also gone up. I think
Yes, of course, if the debt goes up, interest payments goes up.
Substantially. Yeah. I think it's 69,000 crores.
Again, you have to look at it as a percentage of revenue. That's what I'm trying to say. You have to look at it as a percentage of revenue. And yes, the interest payments have gone up. And some years have been better than others, right? Just a few days ago, there was a book laid on the table of the House, 100 years of the Madras Assembly, legislature. And there they had the statistics for the 100 years. So I'm very proud and happy. The 2 years I was finance minister was the best 2 years performance in the history of Tamil Nadu in terms of improvement of finances, both in terms of debt and interest. So some years we do better, some years we do not so.
In terms of this welfare subsidy bill, which is largely driven now by these cash transfers for the women and free bus rides, etc. When it started, it was 37,000 crores. This last budget, it's gone up to 59,000 crores.
Again, I'm saying, you have to take it as a percentage of the total budget.
Which is fair enough. But is this not a dole? Is this not a dole that's being given? In fact, like I said, the opposition is calling it a bribe.
Look, in Bihar, they gave away a whole bunch of money before the election. In Maharashtra, they gave away a whole bunch of money before the election. Was it a bribe then or not a bribe? You can't have different rules for me and different rules for other people because the party changes, right? So I'm just saying, these decisions are made by the Chief Minister. When I was Finance Minister at least, I felt I had some hand in it and took some responsibility for it. I'm sure the current Finance Minister will have a view. It's not appropriate I talk on his portfolio.
No, which is fair enough. But because the Chief Minister has framed this election as a Dravidian model and you have described what the Dravidian model is and the trade-off that you've had to make. But isn't this also monies that should have gone into capital expenditure? For example, since you brought the comparison of Gujarat, Gujarat Viksit Fund, which is their capital expenditure outlay, is substantially higher than the capital expenditure outlay in the state of Tamil Nadu.
Again, I don't have the Gujarat numbers, I only have the Tamil Nadu numbers. Tamil Nadu numbers, as I'd say, if I want to say positively, I say our 5 years, on average, all the metrics have been better than the last 5 years of the ADMK, because it was only till 14 that they did well. And what it says is that political leadership is everything. Till Ms. Jayalalitha was there, the performance was something different altogether. Once she was no longer there, the performance was something else altogether. But that's an aside. The point is, if I look at any 5-year comparison in GDP growth, average CAGR for 5 years, total revenue spending, total revenue income, that is receipts, in any measure, our 5 years were better. Within those 5 years and within our 5 years, there may have been better or worse periods. But now you'd say the trade-off is Gujarat does much more capex. Absolutely right. Yes. What does it do for its citizens? If at the end of doing much more capex, what is the purpose of running a state? If it does much more capex and then 12% of the people are under the poverty, multidimensional poverty, whereas less than 2% are less than us in our state, then that's what the difference of the models is, right? I don't know if you saw this article in the Economist magazine 2-3 months back, which is India's super state, where they compared Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, and they made the exact same point you're making. They have done much more investment in power generation, in infrastructure, in ports, in refineries. What has it led to? It has led to a few people becoming super rich billionaires
Okay.
And the average citizen's quality of life being nowhere near ours, right?
So let me get one final word on this very front, which is that isn't this also one of the reasons why, and you made the political point about it, that some of these semiconductor plants are going away, Google is going away, others are going away, because you're not investing as much in capex.
I think those are the bad examples. I think those are all directed transactions. Government of India is providing huge subsidies and directing them to those states where they have a BJP or ally, and those are not small. What is the Micron plant subsidy? $2 billion US. Government of India chose to give that to send them to Gujarat. You remember, as long as the BJP coalition was in Maharashtra, they had no problem with things going to Maharashtra. When it became the Congress, Shiv Sena, UBT, then they started directing things to Gujarat. Then when it became their government again, now they have a neutral stance. So there has never been in Indian history such a politicization of subsidy and directed investment from the government of India as there has been in the last 10 years. A lot of these investments are driven by direction from Delhi, not because there's a natural trade-off. I say it a different way. The amount of opportunity that is available to us because of the geopolitical structural shift away from 30 years of everything to China, disruption of the global trade order, disruption of the dollar dominance. The scale of opportunity is so vast that every one of the states who has access to this opportunity can hit the full potential of growth, and still there will be excess opportunity left.
Okay.
Right?
All right. May some of that opportunity come Tamil Nadu's way. Thank you very much.
No, because it's come is why we've grown 11.19%.
Sure.
Maybe we can do even more if we go get it right?
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for Mr. PTR? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining.